Hello everyone, welcome back to WV Blacksmithing. Today I'm going to try to design and build a set of tools, a set of dies, and a bending jig to forge a standard J-hook, hopefully pretty quickly. So I got some stuff laid out. Let me turn the camera around and show you what I have in mind. So here I have a set of plates that fit into the press where the dies slide in. I have this piece of 4140 I can use that I forged out a couple months ago. So hopefully I can get one side to have a taper. That way I can taper my stock down. Usually I like to use 3/8 inch thick square stock. Hopefully that works. I've never actually tried to taper stuff like that on the press, or on any press really. And then the other side of the die, I'd like to have a set down area, like how you would do on the edge of the anvil. Tapering like a hook or two is not very hard. It doesn't take very long. But tapering a dozen or two kind of can wear you out a little bit, let alone like hundreds of them if you have orders like that. I currently don't. Otherwise, I'd probably be doing it full time again. But nevertheless, to make the tools is a step closer. And then over here, I've got a piece of angle iron. I might find another piece. This is pretty crusty, which is not a problem in itself. But I think maybe a smaller piece might do better. I'll need two pieces. One piece of the angle iron will have this big piece of round stock. That will be for the hook to bend around. And this piece will be on the other piece of angle iron. That way we can kind of align them in a way where we can slide our hook in and bend it around. Just a simple bending jig. However, I may find that a specialized jig just for my standard J-hooks will end up being better. I'll probably do the set down section and the taper section separately because I don't really have machining capabilities or anything. This is so nice. I've never had a forge with an auto igniter before. You just push the button in and it sends a little shock up to the spark plug and lights the gas. It's awesome. You don't have to have a torch or a lighter or anything, and you can actually get those igniter things for like, I think $10 for a set of two. That's so awesome. And then you could either make your own wire or buy them, and then obviously a spark plug, whatever fit the threads. It's awesome. Got two little billets of that 4140. As I was cutting that steel, I had the crusty piece of angle iron in the forge just to burn off the excess rust, and then I'll just take it out and wire brush it real quick. I got all these pieces of 4140 forged out. I have the taper pieces as you saw and these. And it's hard to explain what I've got in my head for this. But right now, all I know is that I need to forge a J-hook so that I can use the J-hook as a basis to size the set down dies. So here's a 6-inch long piece of 3/8 inch square stock. It's what I've been using for J-hooks. A standard J-hook for probably about 10 years now. Throw that in that opening. Probably forged the tip out a little thinner, but it is what it is. We'll just, I guess it's alright. I just got a little scale on the end there, making it look thicker than it really is. You just scroll that up nice, which this little scroll will still be done by hand, but it's a super quick part of the process. You want to make sure it's closed up all the way, usually for a hook that's going to a customer, or even yourself, honestly, because it could get caught. A little scroll in could get caught on clothing or whatever. Half on, half off, camber blows. Start out with the flat face, and then I go to the round face. Spread it out some more, and then finish the back end. Flat face, small taps. You can really make that any shape that you want. And then set it flat. If you have a flat anvil, you can set it there and look down the hook and make sure that it's all straight and in line. Like this is that little flat section is gonna get pushed up against the wall when you screw a screw into it, when it gets sucked up into the wall. So you can just push on that and make sure that the hook stays flat and looks straight. But anyway, that forged at a relaxed pace. That's how long it took me. So as I'm grinding, something just occurred to me, and we'll see if it works real quick or not before we continue on. I'll flip the camera around so I can explain more. So, here's what I'm thinking. I have a set of flat dies. They're, I think 2.5, 3 inches across, and 5 inches wide. So 2.5 to 3 inches deep, about 5 inches wide. Maybe I might be able to space this out so I can only have to make one die, only using one die plate, and half the amount of 4140. Now I know I already forged the other parts out, but if this works, I can always reuse those other pieces that I forged for something else. So I'm going to get a piece of 3/8 inch square stock hot and try this. I just have these sitting here for now. We'll see if this works. If it does, I might save myself a little bit of work and a little bit of steel. First test was kind of a fail. We will take another heat and try it without the other piece. I think it was kind of blocking the way. We'll see here. Second try. So here's a closer look at the first attempt here. I think if we get it spaced out right, that should be about the right angle for me. I have to get it spaced out and cut the size correctly. Edges rounded off and stuff like that to make a good die. But that's about the shape that we need, about the angle that we need. So let's flip it around and try the other piece as far as setting down. We need to have that spaced out right. I'm going to try to get it about right just by setting it there just for a test piece. And I think we can do this with just one die. So I would say that's a success there for sure. I have a little mark there at the set down because the piece moved as it's just sitting there so far. But if we get all this spaced out right, I think we'll have a success. So I got this tapering die spaced out using the flat top die that we're going to try to make work. I just slid the plate in there, kind of set the block on there, spaced it out right, marked where to cut the block, and then figured out where it needs to be on the plate. Now what we need to do is take our example hook and our block and figure out what we need to do to make this work. So it'll be something like this to make that set down. So we need to figure up with the flat die what the height for this block is, or what we need the height for the block to be in order to have that thickness for the set down. Not crush it too far, not crush it too little, and then also not interfere with the peak of this block at all. So I'm going to do a little bit of thinking and take a look with this die in the press and see what we can figure out. I went ahead and welded the little bending jig. I changed plans. I was going to originally make it adjustable, and I was going to use one of those large billets there. I found that the large billet was too large for this. I thought just by eyeballing it that the large billet would have worked for the right bend, but it was much too large. The smaller one that I had at the beginning of the video is actually the right size. So I still used this one, and then I ended up getting this piece of 5/8 inch square stock just to hold the scroll, which this hook is a little off the ones that I bend with this will be a little different. Like this bend is not completely uniform. As you can see, using the jig, the bends will be uniform. I figured I'd show you guys. And then at the end of the video, we will use it to show that the dies and the jig work. So I figured I'd show you the change of plans. This is why we make an example object for this kind of tooling, because if I would have eyeballed it, it would have been way off. And I would have had to do this anyway, or something like this. You may be able to see the light between there. Now we want a little bit of light there, but we want no light in the tapering die at the peak there. So what that tells me is I need to take this block down the height of that gap in there, because the gap here is right, since I have the hook in there. The gap there should not be there. So let's measure that. I will probably forge this block down, because it's a lot easier than grinding that much. And we will take it from there. So I have a third piece of 6-inch long, 3/8 inch square stock. I have that welded up. I'm going to use a flap disc and just polish off the top a bit. I don't think I really need to, but I'm going to anyway. And we'll see how this works. That worked very well. I really couldn't be any happier. As you can see, if I can find the example hook, it's over here. As you can see, the bend is different, but I actually like that more than this. I think it is more elegant. Definitely happy with that. The only thing I would have to do to this hook right now by hand is make sure it's completely straight. I think it's got a little bit of a bend to it. Let me maybe take a look at it here. Come on. There we go. I think it's straight now. But as you can see, I think this is nicer. I could have got a little more material on the die for the screw section, but for a first test, that's awesome. Especially compared to the prototype kind of piece whenever I was figuring the dies out. It forged out the taper very nicely, very smooth. Like, I couldn't be any happier with that. This is, like, I've never put such little effort into forging a J-hook before in my life. Like, the only swing I had to do was, like, the tapping with this hammer. Like, that was super easy, which is the main idea. But I think it also was pretty fast. So a heat or two for the taper. Say a heat, a little heat on the tip for the scroll. A heat to bend, and a heat to press the little screw section down. So like probably 4 or 5 heats. Probably 5 at the most. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 5 at the most heats. And a couple of those heats are like short, isolated heats just for certain things. That's pretty good. So say if I did 20 of them, all tapers at one time through the metal pile, you know, and so on, I think I could get quite a few of these done using those dies. Could not be any happier with that. So I guess I'll take you guys over and give you a look at the die prep, or the dies. And I really couldn't be any happier with that. Like, that's nice. And then you could add a heat for twisting if you wanted, which obviously I'd either needed a different vise, or if I'm doing production hooks, I would take a heat on all of the ones that I'm twisting and have this out of this vise. Not a big deal. That worked out pretty good. So I guess I'll give you a good look at that. It's not perfect, but certainly does the job. Then over here, the die. My standard flat die that I have. This is the matching flat die. You know, I didn't even have to do anything for that. And then the bottom die here, just this little flat section, this tapered section. Couldn't be any happier with that. Like, that's awesome. The only thing I can see is I may have to harden this because it looks like I got a little bit of a mar here. I don't know why. I'll polish it up and double check. If it needs hardened, not a big deal. I'll probably throw it in the forge faces up and then wait for the tops to get like cherry red and just dunk them in real quick. That way I don't pop my welds off or anything. I doubt that would happen, but you never know doing that. So I'd probably just kind of surface harden them if needed. Thanks for watching, guys. Couldn't be any happier with that. I'll try to bring you along for more projects if I come up with more stuff like that to do. So, thanks for watching. Have a good one.